Take some of this stuff out of my pocket.
Go for it. Yep, there they are. They're already rolling in. I got all kinds of comments over there.
Cool.
See, Jay Beff is in there, Stephanie, Mario, Bass Guy, DJ, Tom's in there. See who else we got in here. David's in here, Small Water Charters. We got a bunch of, man, they were talking up a storm in there.
Small Water Charters, man. We need to go. We need to go down there. Small Water Charters is
Okeechobee?
No, well,
Or are you talking about Donkey Land?
He's down there in. I always forget the name of that place that he's in. He's in Florida.
Yeah.
Headwaters. It's called Headwaters. Yeah, that new lake that opened up down there in Florida.
Headwaters is a whole lot more fun than anything we got around here.
Especially right now. I mean,
yeah.
We
spent the day down there after our tournament that we just got done with, and that is a ton of fun.
So was it a shallow water bite? I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, you're not going to fish anything over about 5 foot deep right now, but it was a lot of fun. We got on a couple pretty good swim bait bites and a little bit of frog, but for the most part, it's flipping and punching and stuff like that.
Man, that sounds so fun right now.
It was fun.
I'm ready for a frog bite.
Yeah. I was just talking to Isaac. I told him, we talking about going fishing, this and that. And he's like, we might not catch anything. I said, dude, I don't care. As long as I got a pole in my hand, I don't care. It's been 2.5 months.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
I went ice fishing the last 2 days.
That, yeah.
It's been like 2.5 weeks since I've wetted a line, I think. And I kept staring at that pond. And I just went out there and took a pickaxe and chopped a couple holes. It took me 2 days, but I finally caught a fish.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caught a little bluegill, man. I was happy. I made a little video.
I guess you don't have any snow on yours.
Not today. No, everything.
See, mine still got, I bet I've got 8 or 9 inches of snow on top of it.
Really?
Yeah.
I guess
some of it's melted today, being almost 51 degrees, but
I guess it sits down that valley just enough.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. We never get wind except for when we had that snow come in there and it was blowing all over. That was the only time we got wind, and they just filled the hole in. So we got plenty of
that's
snow
weird.
down there.
So what's Lake of the Ozarks looking like right now?
I drove over it on about 3 different places today, and it looked pretty solid everywhere I seen. So
Jeez.
I'm thinking it's still a ways out yet.
Really?
Yeah. They're talking about having that Toyota series here in next week or 2 weeks or whatever it is. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, they might. It might all thaw out at once, but I've never seen it. Once it gets this solid, I've never seen it just all go away. It would take something pretty magical to make that happen, but it might. I don't know.
Is Mike fishing it?
Yeah, I'm fishing it too. Me and Mike are fishing.
Oh, both of you?
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, Mike's got I think there's an Anglers in Action team tournament this weekend, supposedly, but I guess that ain't going to happen either then.
No.
There ain't no way it's going to.
I mean, we're supposed to get some rain maybe towards the weekend, and that will definitely help, but I still don't know that it'll thaw anything out good enough to be able to get out and run around. I mean, you might have a little hole you can go fish in or something, but
yeah,
it's more than we have right
now. You'll be able to fish some of the main lake, I would say, by the end of the weekend, but that's just not going to be any fun.
Yeah. Is it supposed to get up to 60 like it is here tomorrow?
Yeah. It was in the low 50s today. You could definitely tell that there was water on top of the ice today for the first time I've seen. So I guess that's a good sign.
Yeah. Get that sunshine on it tomorrow, maybe magnify it a little bit.
Need some wind. That wind's what really gets
start breaking up with the waves.
I think we're supposed to get a little bit more wind tomorrow.
Yeah. When's the last time you saw it like this?
Everybody's been talking like it was like 10 years ago, but I can remember it like 4 or 5 years ago freezing over pretty hard, but it didn't last very long. I mean, it was basically, just about an inch or 3/4 of an inch thick. So it thawed back out pretty quick, but I mean, like this, I don't know. I mean, the problem is right now, we've got all this ice and they dropped the lake so much while it was happening that it's just destroyed a bunch of stuff. And people aren't seeing it right now because nobody's down at their lake houses. But, when they come back down, they're going to see that it's destroyed a bunch of these docks and the dock foam, and it's going to be a mess for a little while.
So you think because the ice is kind of holding the structures up and the bottoms fell out of it, is that what's going to?
Yeah, that ice is just collapsed in on that dock foam, you know, and it's poking holes in it and just basically shredding that black foam. So
gosh,
it's going to be a mess, I would think.
Man, that is crazy.
Yeah, T. Harrison said they've been pulling a lot of water to generate power, so the lake level is pretty low.
Yeah, I mean that is one thing. It's as low as I've ever seen it right now, and I drove through Gravois today, and there's land out in there that I've never seen before. So I mean it is low. And Dad said the same thing. He said I haven't seen it this low maybe ever. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty low. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, we've needed it to come down. You know, it's been slow coming down all winter. That's been part of the problem with the fishing is it's just been so high. And, you know, those fish can't set up right, you know, over the tops of them brush piles and stuff. It's just kind of kept them scattered all winter and makes them tough to catch. But you can still go out and catch them, but it makes it a lot tougher.
Yeah, I know it's probably been, I'm going to guess 7 or 8 years ago I went down there and it was low that year. And I tell you what, some of the banks that we went and fished and docks and everything, you could see where guys had just had man-made, you know, attractions that they had built themselves, and you could tell they were man-made, you know.
Oh yeah.
And they were all up right out of the water or just under a foot of water. Boy, they were giving away a lot of stuff that year.
Yeah.
So, but the couple years after that, you'd always see somebody
really
fishing.
good stuff that we put out when this happens and it gets this low, it just gets found.
Yeah.
Gives away a lot of secrets.
Yeah.
That's
a lot
great
of Marcus's brush piles get found when it's like this.
Hey, everybody's out there taking pictures.
Yeah, no kidding. Marking waypoints.
I wonder how far the water's dropped since it was frozen. You know what I'm saying?
You know, I don't really know. We were gone when all of it was taking place, and I know that the day we left, it was still. I can't remember the exact water level, but I kind of looked at it as we were leaving town, and it was still pretty high, you know, and it seems like it's dropped, you know, 4 or 5 feet since we left and came back home. So,
yeah,
it's been a bunch.
Yeah, like Gary said, can't wait till they start showing it on Google Earth, all them little secret spots.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be nice. I'd almost pay if I had the money. I'd pay a satellite to fly over there and get a picture and get my own private little.
I tell you what, you could probably find somebody around there that's got a drone that could do it for you.
Yeah. That's a good idea. There's probably somebody out there doing it right now.
Yeah, no kidding. Hopping off the live stream, they're out there getting their drone ready.
Yeah, you see somebody having a breakthrough tournament season, and that might be the guy that has a drone too.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. So how was let's talk about the pro circuit tournament you just fished. When did you and your dad travel together, or how's that work?
Yeah, we kind of sat around for a couple years. I was working a ton, and finally, the stars kind of aligned this last year, and Tin Cup kind of pushed us to get back going. And there's nothing I've ever wanted to do besides travel around fishing with my dad. And so we got the opportunity this year, and we took full advantage of it. And we're going to travel around and fish them all together and plan on having a lot of fun with it. But we just got back from Lake Okeechobee, where it was in the 70s and 80s, and we get back here and it's like 10 degrees, so that's not long.
Come back a little too early.
Yeah. Well, we stayed around. I mean, we stayed down there for like an extra 3 days, thinking, we'll just wait around, kind of let that snow and ice melt off a little bit. It still took us almost 3 days to get home, so we should have just drove straight on back.
Yeah.
Mike wants to know. He said he's been hearing about the for the Toyota Series tournament. Is there going to be an issue with any of the ramps because of the water being so low?
Yeah. I mean, there's only certain ones you can put in at when it gets this low. I mean, PB2 will be safe, but you won't be able to put in at Pahitsi. Practicing, I mean, I don't know where he's going to practice, but Shawnee Bend will be hard to put in at. No, but should be one lane at Shawnee Bend that you can still put a boat in at. Golly, it's hard to even think of the names of all of them. But yeah, there are going to be some of them that you can't put a boat in at. But, you know, they should have them blocked off by now. Most of them will just chain off the ramp, you know, if it's going to be too low. But,
You think PB2 will be okay, though?
oh, yeah, PB2 will be fine.
Okay.
They built it way out there, so it should be good. Don't make the mistake and put in a Pahitsi, though, because that one tears stuff up every year, no matter how low it actually gets.
That's a bad feeling, man, when your wheels drop off the end of that ramp.
I'm glad you said that, because we were actually talking about putting in there in April, because we normally stay over at Robbins Resort across the lake, and this year we're staying over at dang it, I can't name of it now. It's right across from Robbins, but we've got to put in at Pahitsi or at PB2.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, you definitely want to put in at PB2.
Well, that's good to hear. I was going to say nobody's ever said anything about the other one, but
yeah, Pahitsi, I mean, their stuff gets torn up there when the water's only about 4 foot low, and I know it's about 6 foot low right now. So.
Yeah,
well, it's good to know. I don't need any more bad luck. That's with the boat.
That's just a bad way to start the morning when you drag the trailer off there, rip an axle out from under it. I mean,
yeah,
I've had it all here. I mean, we've tore all kinds of crap up. So
I've had to help guys in our bass club one time. They were launching the lake over here at a small lake in southern Illinois, and the lake was really low. And he had a bass tracker, like a 17-foot bass tracker, and his tires went off, and he had to get out in the water and, you know, lift his trailer up. Luckily, it was an aluminum boat, so it wasn't a real super heavy trailer, just a single axle, but lifted it back up while one of us pulled forward and got it up over that drop. But I mean, people rip their whole axles out and everything.
Like I said, I've never been to that ramp. I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah,
I'm glad you said that. I won't be going there then.
So you guys headed south, and how many days before the practice did you guys get down there, or did you just jump right down there?
We got down there kind of late. We showed up the day before we had to start practicing. You know, we were planning on getting down there with an extra day just to kind of go and look around at what color the water was all around the lake, but wasn't a big deal. We had plenty of time to do that in practice, but you know, that place has changed so much. I mean, I can remember fishing there, you know, when I was just a little kid going with Dad and Grandpa down there, and it doesn't even look like the same lake. I mean, which I'm sure, you know, if you've seen it go by year, you know, it would be a little different, but I hadn't been there in probably 10 years, and it's changed. I mean, they've got what's called a hard edge out there. You know, it's 200 yards to 400 yards off the bank everywhere, and it's just a hard weed line that is reeds, you know, like bulrush, Kissimmee grass. But there used to be, even out in front of that stuff, like a line of hydrilla, and there's just no hydrilla anymore, hardly anywhere. So that makes it to where it doesn't filter out that water as good, and it's just kind of dingy everywhere. It's not like a typical Florida, you know, the kind of black tannicky looking water that you want to be fishing. You know, it's all kind of brown looking now. And me and Dad, neither one were used to it, and I think it kind of threw us off a little bit practicing. You know, we didn't really want to fish that color water, so we just kept on looking. And I took off, ran down to South Bay, and looked all over South Bay, and I couldn't find any clean looking water anywhere. And he took off up the west wall and headed up north, and he found a few little patches of clean water, and I just kind of headed back up that direction. found a couple little holes with clean water in them. Had some good bites in them. I caught a 10-pounder the first day I was there at practice, and caught a 6-pounder on a horny toad. You know, it was just a good day. But in the second day of practice, I caught a 7-pounder while I was on the phone talking to Dad. And, you know, so I was pretty excited going into it. I thought, well, you know, I'm sure I'm not going to be alone in these places by no means. But, man, that first day of the tournament, I had a rude awakening when I got to my first spot. You know, I was second to last boat out, and there was 40 boats in my primary area that I wanted to start in that's about the size of 2 football fields. And, you know, I just kept on moving. I was like, I can't do this. You know, I can't just jump in there with them guys and take off fishing. I feel like, you know, I'm being rude if I do that.
Yeah.
But in the end, I mean, we all had to get along and fish around each other because there was only so much clean water to be had. But,
Is that from the lack of hydrilla? Is that from them spraying it, or is it from the water fluctuating?
they say that it's from the hurricanes for the most part.
Okay.
But the water has stayed so high. Peter T, you know, he's an old time fisherman that's always lived down there. He said that the water's just stayed about 2 foot high for way too long, you know, and it is. I mean, it was at 15 when we went down there. I don't know how that works down there, but it was at 15 when I went down there ahead of time, and it got down to like 13 while we were there. But still, I mean, I think like typical for Okeechobee is like 11, you know, so it was still pretty high. But it's just a whole chain reaction of things that is just working against the lake. You know, all them guys down there, they blame it on the netters. You know, there's a bunch of commercial netters that are out there catching mullet and catfish and all kinds of stuff. Those people have been netting out there for as long as Okeechobee's been around. You know, they've been out there catching them fish and dragging them nets, and it's not the netters. I mean, it's the high water and the hurricanes and the big winds churning it up. And it doesn't take too long, you know, once that water gets 2 foot over the top of that hydrilla to kind of weaken the stems on it, and you get a couple of those 30-mile-an-hour wind days, you know, blowing out of the same direction, and it just uproots it. So,
yeah, we talked. We had Mark Menendez on here. It's been about a month ago, and one of the questions we asked him was, why hasn't the grass came back on Kentucky Lake? And he was saying that the same thing basically you're saying. All it takes is muddy water for about 2 weeks to where it's got that sunlight penetration to the roots, and that's enough to kill it off. It doesn't take much.
And it might take it 2 or 3 years before it comes back.
That's right.
At all. I mean, it doesn't take nothing at all. Grass is fickle. I mean, it's not like the grass that grows out there in your yard. That's getting sunlight all the time.
Yeah.
But, you know, if it's under the water, it doesn't take much for it not to get any sunlight. And that it can just go away as quick as it comes in, you know.
Mm-hmm. And that's so important, you know, for the biology of a lake. A grass lake has, you know, everything's set up to be efficient, and nature's set up for, you know, the grass. And when you take that grass out of the lake, it just kind of throws everything off.
Oh, absolutely.
I still have it have to do with, you know, a lot of pleasure boaters too. You know, you look at, I mean, where we live, you know, around Southern Illinois and stuff like that, we got a lot of grass lakes over there, but the ones that you can't have a big motor on and stuff like that, the grass is great, you know, plentiful and everything else. You know, they can't have jet skis on and everything like that. But as soon as you get to a lake like Kincaid around us, you know, since people started pleasure boating over there, the grass, it's slowly going and going and going.
Yeah, it comes up and you get that grass growth. It'll just start topping out in like late May. Yeah. And when it gets warm, and then all of a sudden, you know, school gets out and here comes all the pleasure boaters, and it's gone until late fall. So
now, do they spray it up there on those lakes?
They don't.
Because I know when Lake the Ozarks, you know, of course I wasn't around for it, but my dad and grandpa, they always talked about how good it was when we had grass, and when they started spraying it, it was basically just because of all the boat docks and the people and the pleasure boaters. They just killed it all off. And they done it for enough years in a row that it eventually just died and didn't come back at all. But I know that they done that here because of the pleasure boaters, it just for people swimming and stuff like that.
Yeah. They want to launch their dock or pull into their dock and not have to worry about grass.
Right.
And they do that in summer.
We do not live on a fishing lake at all. This is a party lake for the people. We're just lucky that we get to get out there and go fishing every now and then. But it's definitely for the partiers.
Yeah, dude. I remember it was a couple years ago. I was with Mike Marfell and we were at PB2 and we had just launched a boat and we were sitting there and we saw this cigar boat or whatever you call it back down the ramp, and it had four 300s on the back of it. The thing was like 50 feet long or something. I mean, when they launched that thing, the lake went up onto the bank. It just pushed that much water. It was unbelievable.
Oh,
It probably cost like $20 just to start it.
Yeah. If you're lucky. Yeah.
So that's rough.
That's what I never get about Lake the Ozarks. You see all these boats and stuff, and I'm like, how do they afford the gas for that thing? They go out there and they might spend $5 or $6 grand that weekend, and I'm like, I just want to go bass fishing. Hell, it's hard enough just to go and spend $200 putting gas in my bass boat.
Yeah.
I like Smallwater's idea. He goes, gators cut down on skiers and tubers. Throw a couple of gators and it'll be all right.
Yeah, that's the truth.
We'll have
I'll tell you a funny story
hand,
about the
probably,
gators. The third day I got to fish down there, the final day that I got to fish, the top 50 day, I went to go around a little patch of reeds, and there's a little patch of arrowheads, sticking up out there. It's just a little pointy clump of grass that we've always thought that those fish spawn better around them arrowheads. And I pitched my jig out there, and I'm pitching one of those slither rigs around, and sink it down through that patch of arrowheads. When it gets to the bottom, my line jumps out of my guides. I'm like, yeah, this is a good one here. And I told my marshal, I said, you better get your camera ready. This is going to be a big one. And I set the hook, and my line just started zipping through that grass. And I get up there, and I go to pulling, so I can reach down there and grab for it. And all of a sudden, a head pops up, and it's a gator that's 9 or 10 feet long. And I'm like, oh. I didn't even know they could bite something underwater, let alone, find my little creature bait down there.
Yeah.
You have a little snack.
What'd you do? Just cut the line,
I've caught little ones before. I've caught little 3 and 4 footers before, but this was a big animal. I mean, it was like a dinosaur when I went to dragging it to the surface.
Jeez. Yeah, that's
he may have took your bait, but he was about ready to make you his bait.
Yeah, he really wanted me to reach down there and get my bait back, but I wasn't going to do it. The joke was on him. He was going to get to keep it.
Yeah, I don't mess with none of them. I've been punching before and set the hook on a snapping turtle.
Oh yeah.
And then his neck wants to come up when you're trying to reach down there with the pliers, and goes on for a minute. But you got a tungsten weight on there. You got a $6-7 tungsten weight on there.
Right.
So I usually, it just depends on what it is. Sometimes I'll cut the line. Sometimes I'll just grab it and just shake the crap out of it real fast, and it works all right.
Yeah.
Usually bend the hook up, but at least you get your weight back.
There's a good question on there. Hope you can see all that Jay had for you.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to read it on my phone. It's kind of small.
He said you had a solid event for the first one. What's the outlook on the rest of the year? Which lake is one you are the most looking forward to?
I tell you what, we go to Lewis Smith next down there in Alabama, and I've always liked it, and it just kind of fits our style. It's more of a deep, clear, table rock looking type lake. The only curveball to it is it has blueback herring in it.
Yeah.
And you know, that you got to kind of fish it as such to fish for them around the herring. But still, I mean, it's got deep boat docks, and you can always catch some on a jig. But probably Smith Lake. I mean, we go to Eufaula in a couple lakes, or in a couple more tournaments, so that's always a good one. I mean, it should be pretty awesome about the time we're there. Probably still be some spawning going on, late spawners down there. Really, I mean, we should get to fish shallow for the most part. You know, Murray, they should be spawning. I mean, by the time we get up there to the Potomac, should be kind of getting done spawning, maybe some late spawners still, but we should get to fish shallow most of the season, you know, till we get to like the St. Lawrence and stuff like that. But I mean, I can't say that there's one that I'm any more excited about than any of the rest. But Smith Lake, I mean, this next one, I've kind of been excited about it since I've seen it on the schedule, just because we've always liked going there. But it's got some big, giant spotted bass in it. We like to chase them around.
Heck yeah, man. I like them big spots. They're fun.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking about that before the show.
Yeah. Have you fished all the lakes on the schedule before?
Oh, yeah. At some point in time, I've been to all of them. You know, Dad's been to most of them 10, 15 times, but I've been to most all of them.
So how do you attack those blueback herring? I mean, that's a different animal, isn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of more just about understanding them, I think, than preparing for them. I mean, you just kind of got to know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and you just got to go and fish around them. I mean, they come up, and I don't know all about them. I know they come shallow at night, and you got to fish, you know, shallow in the mornings. You got to fish around up in them little flat bays and, you know, just around the shade. And I know they follow that shade line. A lot of times you can just go and fish those shade lines, you know, until noon or 11, noon, something like that, until the sun gets way up high, and then they just go straight to the bottom, or they go out there in the middle of nowhere. And that is what throws us a curveball. I mean, it's a little different now that you've got electronics as such to where you can go out there and find them. But before good electronics, I mean, how those people ever fished for them, I have no idea.
I have the same problem at Lake of the Ozarks. I go out there and about midday, they go out somewhere deep, and I don't know where the hell they went anymore.
Well, a lot of times on Lake of the Ozarks, they just go deeper underneath that boat dock.
Yeah.
And these herring lakes, it's just a different critter. I mean, those herring, they swim in a straight line just as fast as they can. It's not a shad at all. I mean, it's a saltwater fish, and they don't mind living deep. And, you know, it's nothing for them to get out there in 60, 70 foot of water and just kind of roam around. You got to fish for them. I mean, those spotted bass and even the largemouth are going to follow right along out there with them, eating them. So you got to be in on it.
Yeah. So a lot of the fish in that lake are kind of pelagic. You know, they kind of move around a lot, following the herring pretty much.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, all those people, you know, you talk to the locals around those lakes, and they're just matter of fact about it, that your whole fish population, you know, there might be 10% of them stay around the bank that are catchable, and then, you know, everything else gets out there chasing food around. I mean, they're just as certain as they can be that that's how it happens. And I can't say they're wrong about it, because I mean, I've been in on it, and I've got to get out there and chase them around with some really good guys, you know, down there on Lanier and Hartwell and some of those. And that's just how it happens. I mean, you got to get out there and drop shot and jig and spoon around with them. And there's a lot of ways of catching them, but, you know, you got to be out there around them.
Yeah.
So that morning bite it's always critical, but it seems like it might be even more critical on a herring lake.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The last time, I can't even remember what year it was, but it's been 4 or 5 years ago since I've been to Smith Lake. And the last time we were there, I was actually fishing the tournament as a co-angler, but it was like the second day of practice. I was out there with Dad, and we had like 22 or 23 pounds of spotted bass, and I caught them all in like 10 casts, on a jerk bait. And they were standing over 60, 80 foot of water, just in the middle of nowhere. I just slung out there and just to be slinging around. And I caught them all, and just bang, bang, bang. And Dad didn't catch one that day, and that's just how that can go. I mean, it's just different. I mean, it's not like going and fishing around targets around boat docks all day. You're kind of at their mercy, really. I mean, if you don't catch a few while they're up there shallow in the mornings, it could be a struggle for you throughout the day.
Yeah, man, that's a different kind of fishing, especially when you're used to fishing or you like fishing shallow, hard cover. I'm sure there's a learning curve figuring all that out, but thank God for electronics.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, this Garmin Live Scope, I mean, everybody's talking about it, but that's the deal. When you go to a place like that, we only get really, I mean, you only get about 20 hours to get out there and practice. And that seems like a lot to a lot of people, but when you're trying to learn a whole lake and, 2 days of fishing, that just kind of helps you along, But,
so when you and your dad go to a lake, do you pick two different areas and you split up and go check them out and then kind of come back at the end of the day? Or do you guys break down the week together?
I mean, that is one thing that, we have going that's a little handier than some of the other guys. There are two of us, so we can go and, you go to a place like Smith Lake and it's just so spread out, none of it's very big and it's all very narrow, but it just goes and winds and you can go for 50, 60 miles. And it's definitely an advantage, to be able to split up a little bit. And we've actually got another guy that's traveling with us this year, Joe Weberg. And, we all decided last year, once we figured out what we were going to do, that it was going to help that the three of us were traveling together as a team, so if we kind of figured out, and we're not specific about things. I mean, they very, very, I don't even know how to explain it, but, we'll talk about areas and it might be a 10-mile stretch of lake, that, hey, you can go get some bites out of that stretch. And that definitely helps, trying to narrow down some of these lakes. Cause I mean, they're huge. It'd be like me, or somebody coming to Lake the Ozarks and trying to figure it out in a day. Yeah. I mean, you look at this place and it just puzzles so many people where, we've lived here our whole life and know what's going on, but it's the same situation when we go to these other places. I mean, you got to go and figure it out in 2 days of fishing, and it's just not easy. I mean, that's why, some of these guys are such great fishermen, is just they never take a rod out of their hand. They just go and go and go. And hats off to them, because I mean, it's tough. It's grueling to get out there day after day after day. A lot of people look at us like, oh man, they get to go fishing every day. It's not that way when you're trying to feed your family. I mean, it's definitely turns into more of a job, and I wouldn't change a thing. It's all I've ever wanted to do, but it's definitely a lot more work than people look at it.
Yeah, you're not complaining. You're just saying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I know. I know a lot of people that room together. I'm thinking on the elite side, like the Johnston brothers and Gussie and Chris Grohl. They all kind of share general information. They usually stay together. Like Hallman and Pangrack and Castledine are doing some of the opens together, and they'll all room together and kind of share information. And like you said, I mean, that's an advantage. It's so nice to be able to kind of pick different sections. You know, somebody go up the Gravois arm, somebody, you know, go up the Niangua, somebody go up by the dam and break those little sections down, and then just keep it general. You know, don't tell them, you know, the dock number 3 with the red roof on it, or whatever, you know. But and I don't think everybody really wants to know that, because
everybody's gonna fish it different.
Yeah, everybody fishes different. It's hard to catch somebody else's fish, but man, that's good that you guys work together like that, and I think that's something a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helps, you know, and you named a few, but most of these guys have got somebody that they room with or travel with, and the guys that are doing it, you know, all on their own, there's no other explanation. They're just hard-headed and don't like people, because, I mean, it's a whole lot more fun when you got somebody to go home and talk to at night, you know?
Yeah.
That all depends on what kind of jokesters you got staying with you, too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you would spend the night in the hotel room with my dad, you'd understand. He's just a funny bastard.
I think working smarter, not harder, makes sense.
Yeah.
To me,
you know absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, that's cool. That'd be a dream, just to be doing what you're doing as far as traveling with, you know, with your pops, man. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
Good time.
So, just out of curiosity, what's your big confidence baits?
What's that?
What's your big confidence baits?
What, for right now? Like going into spring?
Going into spring.
Oh, you know, there's, in my opinion, and, you know, people are going to argue with this, but there's 2 different kinds of fishermen in the spring. You've got guys that are shad oriented, and you've got guys that are crawdad oriented. I mean, you've got guys that are just going to burn the bank with a square bill and a spinner bait and a jerk bait and stuff like that. And then you've got guys that are going to slow down and catch those crawdad oriented fish. And when it comes to pre-spawn fishing, our thought process has always been that the crawdads have better protein for the bass. That's like a little piece of candy, you know, sitting out there on the sidewalk, and that bass is going to eat that piece of candy every time. And, you know, he might not come up and chase that spinnerbait or, you know, eat that square lip as it's burning by him, but very seldom is he going to pass up a little jig. I mean, he might, but I haven't seen too many that would, you know. And we've always just been able to slow down, and I think, you know, we definitely do not win a lot of pre-spawn tournaments, but we're always there. I mean, it's just hard to explain, but you see some guys that just really dominate in the spring. Sorry. And, you know, we've never been those people, and I think it's because we are a little bit hard-headed with it, and we like to throw a jig.
Yeah.
You know, of course, you can go out there and win any day of the year on a jig. I mean, it's just one of those things that it catches big ones. And, you know, a lot of times you're not going to get near the bites. I mean, you might get 7 or 8 bites through a day, where a guy throwing a spinner bait, he might catch 20 fish, you know, but your 7 or 8 are probably going to be a better quality. And like I say, strictly our opinion. And I know there's going to be people that say, oh yeah, if I get 10 bites on a spinnerbait, they're all going to be big ones. Well, that does happen, but it seems like if we can keep a jig in our hand, you know, and get those 7, 8, 10 bites through the day, we're going to catch a pretty good stringer of fish every day. And don't get me wrong, I'm the biggest duck in the puddle. I've got every crankbait, every spinner bait, you know, I've got it all. But if I only had one choice, I could go out there with a couple of little jig rods and I'm going to be fine. You know, I'm going to catch them doing that just because that's what I like to do.
Right. Yeah. Jay wants to know, he said, you were saying all that about the jigs. He said, did the jerk jig work down in Florida?
It was a little different down there. the Dirk's jig did not like to go through them little clusters of reeds and stuff, so I
Yeah.
had to bump it up a little bit. I flipped around to 1 ounce jig most of the week, but yeah, I mean it. Don't get me wrong. If I would have taken it down there and thrown nothing but, I would have caught some fish on it. But you kind of gotta fish the situation on something like that.
Yeah. So back to that tournament, what were, I know you said you started looking for focusing on clear water. Once you found some clear water, how did you attack the fish? What were your presentations and how are you catching some of the fish?
Well, for the most part, your bait selection in Florida is going to be pretty simple when they're pre-spawn and spawn. I mean, you can take something, uh, some kind of a straight worm, a Cinco, Strike King Ocho, a Zoom Magnum trick worm. You can take something like that and catch some fish. And so I rigged up a 6-inch Cinco, put an 1/8 ounce sinker on it, 20-pound fluorocarbon, and took off fishing with it. And that is how I found, a lot of the fish. There are a lot of the bites that I could get in practice. I pitched that Cinco around a lot. But the first day I was there, I caught a 10-pounder on a 1-ounce jig, and that makes it pretty hard to lay down. And,
Yeah, I don't think I would have laid that down the rest of
Yeah,
the
and
week.
you like a jig anyway, so
exactly. So, I mean, I probably did spend too much time doing that, but, I called Dad as soon as I caught that giant. I was like, man, I just caught a giant on big jig. He said, oh, really? And I said, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I said, it was 30 yards back in this patch of reeds. He took off doing it. He caught a 7-pounder that day on it, and so we got pretty excited about that. But that bite kind of went away. I'm not really sure why, but it seemed like throughout the week, the more isolated you got, whether it be a little tiny cluster of reeds or a little patch of lily pads or whatever, you could pitch that Cinco around. And I caught some through the week on a Strike King Thunder Cricket. I mean, just their vibrating jig. And that was just basically when I was covering water, trying to figure out where I could get another bite. But definitely once I would get a bite, I would slow down, and it seemed like you could get a few more in that general area. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a lot of guys make Florida way too hard, and we didn't do good down there. I mean, yeah, I got a check, and that's phenomenal for the first tournament of the year. But, there was some of those guys that they kept it real all week long and flipped the same bait and just kept on moving. And those are the guys that really dominated.
Yeah. Stephanie wants to know, do you swim or finesse your jigs?
What's that?
Do you swim or finesse fish with your jigs?
I guess he's wondering, do you prefer a swim jig or a finesse jig? Was the question.
Definitely a finesse jig, but when it comes to us and jig fishing, there's so many different variables that go into it. I mean, I've got a little 3/8 ounce ball head, short collar, little brown round rubber jig that I can do so much with it. I put a little stout hook in it, and a lot of times I'll put a 5-inch twin tail on it. I can swim that around. I can skip it underneath the boat dock if I have to. I mean, there's so many different things that we put into jig fishing, and throwing jigs and making your own jigs. There's so many different configurations and ways of going about it
Yeah.
that a lot of
There's
people,
different angles, different heads, different weights, different hooks. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. Yeah.
I've got a 5 or 6 giant Rubbermaid tubs just full of molds that I pour different jigs with. I've probably got 100 different jig molds, and there's so much crap that goes into it, and it's really hard trying to determine what you're going to need where. I mean, it comes down to, it's such a problem for us now that I pour some jigs every day, and I definitely, tie a couple dozen jigs every night, just different situations. And
Yeah. What kind of trailers you got using?
That's another one of those things that we put a lot into that. I mean, I've got 10 different ones that I'll put on, the back of a little finesse jig, whether it be a little beaver type bait, or we've always thrown a Guido bug, just a little crawdad trailer. But
Yeah, Ron Drossel, he was talking about the good a while ago.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, Lawson, I was hanging out with Jay Beffa just a couple days ago. We were up there doing some video,
Right.
and he pulled one of these out of his box and said, make sure you bring that to the live stream. I think you've probably seen that before.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've tied a couple of those.
Yeah, that's the little Dirks jig.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are kind of known for that, but I think that's a 1/2 ounce, but it's such a small finesse profile jig. But it does have it's got a nice stout hook on it to press the jig. I haven't thrown it yet. I just got it the other day. But
when the man behind that jig, he's always been one of our best family friends, and we've been fishing partners forever. But when Dirk came up with that, the first version was very crude, and I don't have one here with me, but it started off not looking nearly that pretty, but it was very effective. And, he just kept refining it and making it a little bit better. And now, I mean, that's just the perfect little situation. If I'm around a bass that I can't make bite, typically I can take that Dirks jig and I can put cut off a little tiny crawdad, string it up on there, and that's one of those things that just never leaves our boat. That guy was joking about doing that in Florida, but I had one in the boat and it stayed rigged up. It always does, because I feel like if I have to, I can go and catch a bass on that pretty well wherever I'm at. I mean, that's just something that one's not going to turn down. So, yeah, that, everybody kind of laughs and jokes about, the little tiny jig, but that's a serious deal for us. When we need a keeper, we go catch it.
Heck yeah.
You don't happen to know that Mike Marfell guy, do you?
No, I don't think I do.
Well, he said he's got a bunch of those in his box too. Hellabass is on here, and I just wanted to say something real quick. If you guys are doing the fantasy fishing stuff, he's got a private group. Jump on there and get registered on his group, and he's got the code on here. It's Jigs for Pigs is the password to get on there. So I just
hashtag Jigs for Pigs.
Hashtag Jigs for Pigs. I don't know. This is the first year I've did the fantasy fishing in a couple years, and it's kind of fun, man. It's fun. You pick your little team, and you're watching. It makes you get into the tournament a lot more.
Yeah.
You just every time one of your guys catches a big fish, you're cheering for him. And
looks like this week everybody should have been picking Brian Thrift. I don't know,
every week.
Yeah.
Well, Brian knew one. Brian knew one the elites.
Yeah, but where's it come from? Yeah,
Brian Thrift. They're like one and the same almost.
That dude is. I mean,
he's a robot. He's a machine.
Yeah. Yeah. He pretty well catches them everywhere he goes.
Stephanie had a couple questions back. Yeah. I just want to make sure we get some of these questions before we get too far away.
Yeah, she had a good one up right here. So she wants to know, how did you get the opportunity to fish pro? I'm new to fishing and still learning.
Oh, it takes a lot of work. I mean, I'm not gonna just bull crap and say that it was easy, because it's not easy. I kind of we had the opportunity last year, with Tin Cup, and the story behind Tin Cup is a long story and I won't get into it, but the one of the head guys for that liquor company, for Proximo Spirits, he has been around the family since he was 12 years old, and he just has always, pushed for us to, get back going. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be fishing. I mean, there's no bones about it that they are the only reason that I've got to go fishing this year. But there's more goes into it than just finding somebody to help you pay for it. I mean, I had to fish the Toyota Series for several seasons, to get qualified. And luckily last year I had a decent season. And, you know, it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time on the water, you know, getting out there and figuring them out. And I know that I spent way more money last year than I made just trying to get qualified to get to go fishing this season. So, yeah, it's not an easy road, you know, if you're trying to do it, but I mean, it's possible. It's possible for anybody. And that's the great thing about professional fishing. I mean, it's something that anybody can go and do, you know, if they set their mind to it, you can go and do it. You just got to work hard at it. And I can't say that I would have ever done anything any differently. You know, my girlfriend Bonnie, she's pushed me 100% the entire way. You know, and we just had a baby. We had a baby uh, like 3 or 4 days after the Toyota Series on Lake the Ozarks, and the Table Rock Toyota Series was like 2 weeks later. And you know, I wasn't gonna go. I was like, you know, I just had a baby. I can't go to that. And she's like, oh yeah, you gotta go. You know, you're not gonna sit here at the house. And so she was off work, and her and the baby came down and spent the week with me down there. And I mean, if it wasn't for her and dad and the baby, I mean, I couldn't do it. You know, it's just too hard to be away.
So where's Tin Cup? So that would be your title sponsor?
Yeah.
Okay. Where are they at? Where are they out of?
The company that we work for is based out of Indianapolis.
Okay.
But Tin Cup originated in Denver, Colorado. And I can't tell you a lot about it. I mean, it's a hell of a good whiskey, and we do drink it. But you know,
Hey, they works, man.
Yeah, they decided that they wanted to put together a fishing team, and they chose us. You know, I think it's kind of the rugged, redneck, mountain-looking men that they were looking for. So,
heck yeah, man, you guys fit the bill.
Yeah.
That's why Marfeld.
Beard game is strong.
That's why Marfeld never got in.
Yeah, Marfeld's got
his beard game wasn't strong enough.
He's getting there though. So Dave wants to know, depending on water clarity, what are your favorite jig colors?
That's something that we do keep fairly basic. You know, all the different variables, especially in the spring. You know, if it comes down to, you know, if you can see a foot deep, I can catch one on a brown jig. And we've always kind of based it off of that. But if you get to where you can only see inches deep, I'm probably going to switch to something black, some form of black and blue, you know, black and purple. But when it comes down to browns, I throw brown. You know, I don't put a lot of extra crap into it. You know, I throw a little brown jig, and I'll paint my trailers up a little bit. You know, put some orange or chartreuse on them, but we do try and keep that fairly simple. You know, just so we don't have to have 100 different variations of jig colors. And yeah, if he was coming to Lake the Ozarks, I could make it a whole lot more simple than that. I mean, you can take a brown jig and catch them year round. But, you know, when it gets to the fall, a lot of times we'll, you know, switch more bluegill, you know, shad oriented stuff. But if it's springtime and I'm throwing a jig, it's because they're eating crawdads. So it's going to be some form of brown.
Right. So you throwing that Dirk's jig, is that typically a shallow water jig for you, or are you fishing it out in, say, 20 foot as well? Or do you go to more of a football style jig when you're doing that?
Well, the Dirk's jig, it started out, you know, me and Dirk were fishing some wintertime tournaments, and he just kept, you know, making stuff tinier and tinier. And, you know, we always used to throw football jigs and big stuff. You know, even in the wintertime, we always kind of thought that, you know, like a more mop style skirt, you know, got you more bites, but that couldn't be any further from the truth. I mean, when he got to really honing it down, we were catching, I'll never forget the day that he climbed in the boat for the first time with me with this thing. and we were catching a lot of fish on those secondary points that were anywhere from 15 to 25 foot. I mean, and there was just a ton of fish on them that year. But we were having days where we were catching like 100 keepers a day.
Wow.
And a lot of them were 3 to 5 pounders. You know, it was like when the A-rig came out, was when Dirk came out with this little jig. It was by far the greatest thing that any of us had ever seen. You know, it was just awesome. But yeah, to answer your question, no, I'll throw it in 5 foot of water if I have to. But I caught a lot of them down there at Table Rock last fall, 40 foot deep on it. So, you know, yeah, there's no right or wrong. I don't flip it a lot. You know, I hear guys talk about pitching it along the bank. I do have a different hook application for that. You know, I go to more of a round bend hook when I'm just going down the bank. But to say you have to, no, it's a confidence thing for me. You can take the same jig and catch them all the time on it, but I do switch it around a little bit, and it's just because I will typically go, you know, more to a heavy line. You know, everybody talks about a finesse jig, you know, pitching it around on 10-pound line. We do that, but typically that's like a late fall deal. You know, we'll go down to like 10-pound line, pitching that little brown jig around. But in the springtime, it's another one that's kind of hard to explain, but I'm kind of wanting to float that jig around in them rocks. You know, I don't want it stuck down there in the rocks, you know, hopping it around down there. I kind of want it just to drift around down there in the rocks. So I will bump my line size up a little bit. You know, I'll go up to 20-pound line just pitching along down the bank, which kind of seems unorthodox for, you know, pitching a little finesse jig around, but it's just a system that we've made work for us. And if we can get away with it, I mean, we're going to try and use 15-pound line, you know, when we're going down the bank. And if we can go to 20, that's just even better. But, you know, we definitely downsize, you know, the later it gets into the fall, the more we'll downsize our line, you know, just because that water seems like it starts clearing up, you know, kind of going into winter. And we will downsize our equipment for that.
Yeah. So you're you mentioned a round bend. You like to go to a round bend hook. What's your reasoning for that?
I use a little, and it's the same little Dirk's head. You know, we use the same little half ounce and 5/16 head pretty well all the time. But I'll put a little 2/0 round bend, and it's a heavy wire Gamakatsu flipping round bend, and it's kind of a special little hook. But, you know, I feel like if you are fishing 5 foot or less, it changes the angle of when you set the hook. You know, it's kind of like going from an EWG to a straight shank, you know, when you're flipping and casting out in open water. If I'm throwing something out in open water, I feel like that EWG, you know, if I'm throwing it 30 or 40 yards from the boat, that EWG is going to get them better than it is like a straight shank flipping hook. And it's the same concept when I go to the bank. I mean, if I'm going to pitch 10-yard pitch or flip to the bank, it's going to be on a round bend for me. I mean, I just feel like you stab them in the top of the head every time you set the hook. That's just how we do it. But if I'm fishing, say, 8 foot or more, it's going to have some kind of a O'Shaughnessy style bend in my jig hook. And it don't matter what it is. I mean, we put it in our football jig too. You know, we just kind of upsized it from the Dirk's jig, and that's just what we do in our football jig now too. And it's kind of a little short looking, goofy looking hook, but there's not one out there that hooks them better. I mean, people can argue with it all they want, but I mean, we catch hundreds and hundreds a year on it, and you just don't lose many fish. So when it comes right down to it, it's a confidence thing. But we do it all the time, and that's one thing we do, pride ourselves to be as pretty good jig fishermen. So we're going to figure out the best mousetrap for every situation.
Yeah, what I heard on that that rings a bell with me is like on what you said about having an EWG on a long cast, and that's the hook, in my opinion, that you want when that fish is jumping out there, because that EWG kind of locks them up and holds on to them. But when you're in tight, you don't have to have that EWG. You're keeping good pressure on them. They're not gonna. Chances are they're not going to throw slack in your line near as much.
Right.
So that kind of makes sense. I never really thought about. I do that on soft plastics, of course, but I hadn't thought about.
It goes hand in hand with doing the same thing on your jig. You don't see flipping jigs out there on the market that have like an O'Shaughnessy style hook in it, and that's for a reason. It just simply hooks them better. If you're in close quarters with them, a round bent's going to hook them better. But all in the same respects, I'll take that Dirks jig if it's in my hand, and I'll pitch it behind the boat dock, and I'm going to land that fish 99% of the time. So, I can't say it doesn't work, but, it's definitely a confidence thing.
Yeah. Todd on here said, how does that jig compare to like the Bitsy bug, and what's your opinion on the Bitsy bug?
Like the Strike King Bitsy bug?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't give an honest opinion about really any of the store-bought jigs. I know there are a lot of great ones out there for sale, but to say I have ever used any of that stuff, I really haven't. I have used a few of the Strike King jigs, just because we do work with them, but I can't.
Denny Breyer hasn't given you any jigs over the years?
Oh yeah. We've got flipping jigs from them, but still, I don't sit around and make that stuff every day of my life to not be using it too. So
yeah,
I can't give any honest opinions about really anything store bought when it comes to a jig. We just don't use that stuff. So, like I say, a lot of great jigs out there on the market, but I couldn't tell you an honest answer either way about them. So I'm not even going to try.
Oh, I was looking to see if I brought my jig box here. And I was going to see if I had a Bitsy bug. I've got the Dirks jig in there. I don't know if I have a Bitsy bug. Most of my jigs are Cumberland Pro. Still looking. Problem is, you start getting a jig collection, and that one you're always looking for is usually on the bottom.
Right.
Or it's mixed in with the black and blue, and you're looking for a green pumpkin or something. Because man, sometimes I get in a hurry. If I'm fishing a lot of stuff, I'll throw it out in the bottom of my boat throughout the course of the day, and then on my next trip, I'll usually just grab it after it's dried out, and I'll kind of start chucking it in the close compartment. It may not be the one it's supposed to go in, but it'll be right next door, so I know it's in the general vicinity. But yeah, I would say that this Dirks jig is definitely, to me, it's got a completely different shape than the Bitsy bug. I would say it's even more finesse because, you don't have much skirt material on there at all. That's like probably 15 strands or something like that on there. Yeah. I don't know if you guys
most of them are 16 strands on the Dirks jig.
Yeah.
And that was part of the whole thought process behind it, was when you throw it out there, if you put like a little crawdad cut down on it, that half ounce with that little thin strand skirt, that shoots straight to the bottom. We throw it 99% of the time. When I've got a Dirks rig going in the water, it's on a spinning rod with 10-pound braid to a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, and that'll be on the bottom in 20 foot of water in a matter of seconds.
Okay. That makes sense.
And that it's just very efficient, even in the winter time, kind of when Dirk came up with it, it's still pretty quick, how you fish it. We're not just dragging it along out there. we're hopping it around, and it's not like your typical finesse jig. And I brought a couple here with me too. You know, I got a Dirks jig, and I'll just hang it up there. I mean, I know you guys have seen it, but it's got that little, you know, thin skirt, little hook, you know, little thin weed guard, and then like I would say more like the bitsy bug style, you know, your one like we would pitch down the bank, you know, that's that little round bend hook, you know, same little ball head, but it's a totally different application. I mean, the one with the little round hook, you know, I'm like I said earlier, I'm not going to fish over 5 to 8 foot deep, you know, with that jig. I'm going to go more to the thinner strand, you know, even more finessey, but it's getting to the bottom quicker. I'm going to be more efficient with it, you know. But you can make it really simple, you know, on your jig fishing, and you could carry about 3 different jigs and do about everything you need to with them. But
yeah, you made the comment earlier about the, you know, the big mop jigs and stuff like that. That's one thing over the last probably 3 years I just haven't picked up anymore. I just
a big
mop jig. Yeah, I haven't had as much luck on it. I don't know if it's just the newer jigs I've been throwing or got better at fishing jigs or what it was, but I can't seem to get bit on a big mop jig anymore.
I'll tell you what, that Toyota series that we had here in October, going into it practicing, I really thought that I was going to win on a big mop style football jig. I mean, it was pretty crazy. And you were talking about it, you know, before we came on about the big bass bash, you know, and that's always that weekend before. And I mean, for a week before that thing, I was catching 20 pounds a day, you know, pretty handily on a big mop style football jig. And of course, the big bass bash came along, and it made it hard to get a bite, you know, out of a pile of brush. But yeah, they'll still bite that big mop jig every now and then. It takes the right situation. I mean, it seems like when they're eating bluegill and stuff like that, you know, I will go to a bigger, you know, thick mop style skirt, big long, you know.
Yeah, it just kind of goes along with what you were saying, you know, in your dirt jig that you guys came up with there. You know, it's kind of the same thing. You went that lower profile,
right?
Seems to get bit a lot better.
Yeah, this is a Cumberland Pro. They call it's their Bitsy Procaster jig. So it's a super finessey jig as well. That's, you know, this is something you're definitely gonna be throwing on spinning gear, like 8 to 10 pound test. And let me grab that Dirks jig again just for comparison. So they're, you know, the Dirks has got this is a 1/2 ounce, of course, and this is probably like a 3/16. So, you know, you're going to notice there is a profile difference. I'm weird with this camera. I think I'm going up, I'm going down.
The camera's way up there.
I know, man. I keep thinking, I don't know. You know, this is only my 20th live stream. So there we go. That's a lot better. But I'm still the wrong way. It's like shaving or something. But this is another 2 finesse jigs right here, just different brands. Of course, this one's got a little bit more skirt material on it. But that small profile, I'm kind of like what you're saying. You know, if I need a bite, I really feel like I can slow down with the finesse jig and get a bite. Same thing with the shaky head. You throw a shaky head down there on Lake of the Ozarks a lot?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a shaky head is one of the things that I'm not going to if I don't have to. But there is certain times of the year that a shaky head just will outfish a jig, hands down. Seems like your late summer, you know, going into early fall, a shaky head will kind of dominate over a jig a little bit. But, you know, all in the same respects, I can take and skip a jig enough times underneath the boat dock, and I'm going to get enough bites doing that. But, you know, definitely, I mean, there's some times that a shaky head will outfish a jig.
That's what I was going to ask you. Now, how do you know that that's happened? So if you're fishing an area that you have a lot of confidence in, and you're throwing the jig and you're just not getting bit, but you're still seeing the fish on the bottom. Is that when you're going to make that switch to a shaky head, or how do you make that decision?
There's a lot of times here on, especially on like the Ozarks where, guys think that they're just biting funny, that they're eating their jig trailers off, When that goes to happening, you can pick up a standard, ordinary, 1/8 ounce to 1/4 ounce shaky head. I'm not going to throw brands out there because I don't know any. We make our own, but put a 7-inch regular Zoom trick worm on it, and you're going to catch those fish. I mean, and it's nothing more than just slowing down a little bit and shaking that worm right in their face. It's just like pitching a crawdad at them pre-spawn. They're going to eat that. Over a lot of times, in the fall when we're doing that on that shaky head, they're not necessarily wanting to eat that bluegill as it's skipping right by them or something, but you pitch that little worm down there in his face and he's going to eat it. So that's a lot of times, if they start eating my jig trailer off or, eating the claws off I throw a rage crawl on the back of my skipping jig a ton. And if they get to eat my claws off of it or something, I'll pick up shaky head. And nothing more than a confidence thing. But, a lot of guys just take and never lay a shaky head down. There's not a thing wrong with that because you are going to catch probably more fish than anybody else. But, once again, I feel like if I can get them bites on a jig, they're going to be a better quality. So.
Yeah. Yep. Alex said he's had good luck with the Omega football jigs. And then we got Mike Russell on here. He says, Dirk and Lawson are the only people who study crawdads as much as me that I know of. So shout out from Mike.
Tell him he better be painting some crankbaits while he's watching this.
That's all he does, man. He just paints crankbaits over and over.
He brought us the couple that were.
He was up here. He was up here a couple of weeks ago. He actually drove up from Kentucky Lake and sat in the studio with us. And man, he's got it down to a science. He's very detailed, pretty impressive stuff.
He's painted me some pretty stuff, and it's hard for me to advertise it because I don't want to show nobody that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's say Jay got on here. He said tournament results tell a lot about the lake and what's your opinion on the declining weights at Lake of the Ozarks over the past year to year and a half.
That's a tricky one because we all sit around, me and Dad have sat around for hours talking about it, and Dirk, and I can't really explain it. I think that the current here, I think it was 2 summers ago that the current never stopped pulling at all. It just pulled and pulled and pulled, and those fish ate so good all summer long, and that's great. They're biting. Everybody's out there chasing them around. But the problem with that is when they do have these tournaments down here in the summertime, the big boats and the rough water are not a good situation for those bass in them live wells. And I can't say nothing bad, about the tournaments because, I'm the biggest duck in the puddle. I get out there and chase them around too. But it is definitely, I think, hurt our fish population, just by having a lot of those tournaments in the summertime. And I really started noticing it along with, about 20 of these other guys around here. We all started noticing it last year after all that was taking place. They were biting so good for so long and they were having all them tournaments, it was taking big stringers to win them all. And all of a sudden it's no good. Well, I can't say it killed them all, but it definitely killed a big part of the fish population, which you're never going to kill all the bass in Lake the Ozarks because there's so many. But it was definitely hard on them after that one summer, and it's nothing more than there was too many people out there chasing them because it was way too good of fishing.
Yeah. That's a good answer. Ron wants to know the best place to get Cumberland Pro jigs. Oh wait, Dirk's jigs. I'm sorry. Where can we get some Dirk jigs?
I misread the same thing. That was weird.
Do you sell them out of your house, or they got them in tackle shops, or where do you get them?
Yeah, you can get them from Fitz Fishing, both the stores down here. Tombstone Tackle in Columbia carries them. Merton's Bait and Tackle. We're trying to add tackle stores in slowly, but it's just me and him making them, and it's quite the process. We're so far behind right now that we can't get caught up. So some of the tackle stores around here, you can get some. We try and keep them kind of stocked up just so they can keep everybody happy. But
so could you keep me a couple on your front porch, and when I come down in April, I'll just pick them up?
Absolutely. Put them in yeah, when you get here in April, you will have some jigs. There's a pretty long list right now. So
I bet. So you can relate to Mike Russell then. He's busy all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, me and him talked the other night for an hour and a half, and we've got the same issues going on right now. Neither one of us can keep up.
Well, that's a good problem
to have. Not complaining at all.
Right. Good problem to have for sure. Mike accuses me of drinking tin cup. So here to Mike.
It's just water, Mike.
It's tea. It's iced tea.
There's no ice shaking in there.
But it already melted.
Yeah, it's a neat iced tea.
That's right. It's hot in here.
I had the iced tea.
So how do people going in from the winter to the pre-spawn on Lake of the Ozarks? If somebody was to go down there, what do they need to be looking for? What kind of areas? Where do you start at if you're trying to find fish this time of year?
This year's going to be different because of this ice.
Mm-hmm.
But, when all this ice melts off and all this crap gets cleared out of here, the water stabilizes, they quit dropping it. It's going to be tough for probably 3 weeks to a month. I mean, there's a big shad kill going on. I mean, with this ice, you're going to have that. And those fish just do not need to eat your jerk baits. I mean, it's pretty plain and simple.
Mm.
But, so people can't get discouraged when they go out there and don't have a great day, But me and Dad were talking about it earlier. We remembered the last time that this happened. We won a few weekends in a row, and it was all off of one stretch of bank, and you can find those areas that are just absolutely loaded. And that happens, it happens on a regular pre-spawn year, but this year, with all the situations playing out like they are, you're going to find a place that you can fish all day long. I mean, and it might be a strip of bank. I'm not going to tell you that you got to go to the last channel bank in a creek. I mean, that's a typical pre-spawn type deal. But, like here 4 or 5 years ago when this happened, we found a place in the Gravois that was not out there on the main channel in the Gravois, but it was just inside of a creek. We weren't 100 yards up in a creek, and we found a stretch of bank that was 80, 90 yards long where we could get bit off of it, and we just went back and forth. And basically until you got tired of looking at the same patch of bank, and then we moved on. But we were catching all of our weight off of one bank. And, you're just going to happen onto a place like that. And electronics are definitely your friend when it's like that. I mean, because you can spend a lot of time, fishing and fishing and fishing without getting a bite. And then all of a sudden you get to a place and you get 15 bites in a matter of, an hour. Well, you need to really think that through on where you just done that, because there's a whole pile of fish there. And that happens, like I say, on a typical pre-spawn year, but especially when the lake gets this low and we get this, hard, cold, couple weeks of winter, going into spring, it definitely bunches them up. And when it sucks down this fast like they done for all this cold weather and generating power, that really tightens the fish up and will pull them to certain little areas. So, like I say, I can't tell you like a certain kind of bank that they're going to get on, because there's no rhyme or reason a lot of times why they're on a bank. But, it might be, a little channel swing, and it might be, you're catching them 3 to 5 foot deep on a little pea gravel bank. I mean, but they do load up on some of those places. So, idle around, go around with your side scan. Don't pick up a fishing rod until you see a little cluster of fish. I mean, that's the best thing I can tell people going into what's happening right now, because it's just not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun fishing, for a little while. Now, a month and a half, 2 months from now, it's going to be great. I mean, it always is, end of March through April, bar none, my favorite time to be on the water, is the end of March through the middle of April. I mean, and it's just because the sheer amount of big ones that we get to catch, and that's true pre-spawn fishing. People look at it like, oh, it's March, it's pre-spawn. No, not this March. This is wintertime stuff right now, and it's going to be for a little while. So don't come down here, in another week or 2 weeks expecting to go wiggle worting them. I mean, you're going to have to throw a little jig and a stick bait and stuff like that to still catch them.
So you're a little bit behind, probably. I mean, that's what you're saying in a nutshell.
Yeah, and it's not like it affects it a ton, but it does affect it enough to where, you are going to have to slow down still to get a bite. I mean, the A-rigging's probably not going to be happening good. I mean, just because of the shad kill.
Yeah.
In my opinion, those shad kills, you got to look at it a couple different ways. It is good for the environment and the fishery. I mean, there's nothing better than a good shad kill. But I try to go to where it's not as affected. Like Lake the Ozarks, I love fishing the low end of the lake. Don't get me wrong. But that is where the biggest shad kill is going to happen, is from the toll bridge to the dam. And that's just because of the clear water. I don't know the science behind it, but I know it kills them shad a lot worse than it does in the little dingier water.
Mm-hmm.
But I try to, when this type of thing happens, I will try to focus more from, let's say, the toll bridge to the hurricane deck bridge. That seems to be a little better area, for when a big shad kill happens. It just doesn't seem to affect it as bad. So, that's no big secret. I mean, everybody knows about that stretch of lake, but in my opinion, it's one of the better stretches to be fishing, this time of year. And even, on up in April, I'll start moving my way slowly on up the river, and I've got an uncle that lives in Big Buffalo. He's got a house in there that, we fish way up there a ton. So I love fishing way up that river, but that's a ways out. When it's froze over like this, those fish up there, they are affected by this because there's just a lot less water, and it's got something to do with the oxygen underneath that ice, but it's not going to be good for a little while. And like I say, I'm the biggest duck in the puddle about running way up that river because I love it up there, but just try and avoid it until April. I mean, if you'll do that, if you'll work your way up through there slowly, you'll catch a lot more bass.
Well, that shad kill theory that you were talking about from the toll bridge to the dam, kind of, you can parallel that to, we're kind of getting away from the spring and stuff, but you can parallel that to, say, fall time when you're trying to locate the bait balls and you come into an area that's just loaded with bait. For me personally, that's one of the hardest areas to get bit out of because you got so many shad in there that it's hard to it's hard to make your bait stand out. So I typically am looking for an area that's got some bait in it, but not an overwhelming amount of bait. So I guess what you were saying about
I definitely, I understand
down.
what you're saying there. In the fall, when it's, and it's not fall, but let's talk September, early October. I try and avoid, fishing around all them big, thick herds of them little shad. I try to avoid them completely because they will do nothing but tick you off. I mean, that you see all those fish out there busting in the middles of them little pockets and them back ends, and that is a tricky critter to fish for. I mean, you'll catch one once in a while, but I try and stay away from that at all. But once you get middle of October till Christmas, you better be fishing around the big gizzard shad or you're not going to win. But that's a whole different situation. I mean, you got to look at those situations as they come. But, the big gizzards, definitely, I mean, I don't think that I'll ever try and avoid them because if you're around the big gizzard shad, there's going to be a big bass there eating them somewhere. And that doesn't really matter what time of the year it is. I mean, if I see them in the springtime, it gets me excited because I know that, there's one standing there ready to eat one somewhere. So shad are just kind of tricky to fish around. It's nothing like the herring lakes, but they're tricky. I mean, you got to know when to kind of stay away and when to jump right in the middle of them.
Well, they get so tuned in on a certain size bait. And talking about those small shad that you were mentioning to get away from, they'll get so locked in on those certain size shad that you can't get them to react. I mean, there's been many times where I've had 4 or 5 pounders busting near the boat, chasing little 1.5 inch young of the year shad, and it doesn't matter what you throw at them, you cannot get them to respond.
2 years ago was the first time I've had really good luck with that. And you're talking about them the big monster balls of shad out there. And we were all the way in the back of a creek or back of an arm, pocket, whatever. And the only thing, I mean, my partner was fishing in the front of the boat. He was throwing some different stuff, but I ended up going down to a very small double willow leaf spinner bait and just slaughtered them. I mean, I was just coming right through the schools. And that's where I was catching all my keepers. And I mean,
small blades on it.
Yeah. But I mean, I called, I don't know how many times that just in that first 2 hours, just kept running them back and forth right through that school. But like you said, it was frustrating because you got that big ball of shad out there and you'd see them busting. You'd see a lot bigger ones coming through there and coming through that ball. But I mean, I was catching keepers the whole time, but
I figured it out. 1 year in September, and this is the craziest damn thing. But Dad ended up winning the 2-day BFL, and about 50% of what he weighed in was doing this. And you see all those fish out there busting in those little tiny shad and eating them, and some of them are big ones. Well, we fished through everything, and you're throwing all kinds of crap at them, and I had just gotten back from Lake Dardanelle, and we went down there. It was terrible tough. I mean, but you could take a Zoom horny toad and throw it just as shallow as you could, and every now and then get one of those big ones to bite it. And, we caught a lot of fish down there on it. And I got down. I had cut crap off, had baits laying everywhere in the bottom of the boat, trying to catch them. Not really schooling fish, but them ones just busting in the middles of them big hordes of shad. And I drug out that rod that I had that horny toad tied on. I was getting ready to cut it off and put something else on it. And I just picked it up and slung it out there at one that had just came up and busted. And I caught a 5-pounder out of the middle of them. Yeah. And it was on just a green pumpkin Zoom horny toad. And I kept slinging it around, and I got like 8 or 9 more bites that afternoon on it, not setting the hook because we were practicing for that BFL. And it ended up in the tournament. Dad won that BFL, about half of it skipping a jig under boat docks. The other half was throwing around the green pumpkin Zoom horny toad, and it made no sense whatsoever. But, I mean, he was catching, 17, 18 pounds a day, and about half of it was on a horny toad out of them shad.
That's crazy.
And it's just, stupid stuff like that every now and then, dumb luck that you figure something like that out. Because, like you were talking, I mean, every now and then you'll get one to, just roasting a little spinnerbait through there. You'll get one to bite that. And, but we figured out something, that week that was pretty special. And I mean, I haven't really talked about it to anybody because we, haven't had to do it again. But that's something that, nobody else has ever tried that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It was the same situation, just dumb luck. But
Mike Russell's yo-yo and a rattling bait. Mike says yo-yo and a rattling bait, and whitewell fishing says a white tube in those schoolers. Another thing that works good is a black and blue swim jig with a green pumpkin rage crawl throwing through those schoolers. And I think I had a guy tell me this a couple years ago, but one strategy is to throw something exactly opposite of what those shad look like, something that just really stands out, and they'll focus on it. But I haven't tried the horny toad
thing.
Take
a bluegill's running through it or something.
That's a good one. The horny toad thing.
I seen my grandpa one time. We were somewhere, and it was on like Lake Lanier or something like that down in the south, and we were practicing for one of the Forest Wood Cups that Dad had qualified for, and it was kind of the same situation. There was a bunch of little tiny, I guess they were shad. They looked like shad to me, but they were really hoarded up in the back ends of them little pockets and bays. And Grandpa got down one time and rigged up just a regular standard size Zoom brush hog, and he put it on like a 3/4 ounce sinker, and he would just pitch that out in the middle of them big balls of shad. And he caught the hell out of them that day.
Really?
That's something I've never really forgot, but that big bluegill just zipping down there through them shad made them react. But,
yeah.
There are ways of catching them. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it's impossible to catch them around them big hordes of shad, because you can definitely catch them, but we try to avoid it. I mean, it's kind of like chasing schooling fish around. If we don't have to, we're not going to.
I hear you on that. Actually, there was a couple back up there. Somebody was asking about the Guido bug, if it's back.
I think
was that Jay? Jay was on there. Okay.
Yeah,
Jay,
several.
Yeah, Jay Beffa says there's been several inquiries. Is there any production on the Guido bug still happening?
Well, there's a new and improved one now. One of Grandpa's best friends, right before Grandpa got sick with cancer, him and one of his best friends from Cassville, he's a mold maker, and he is just he's an artist with a Dremel tool, but he carved Grandpa a couple of different sizes of crawdads, and they worked on it for 2 or 3 years, and they finally, Danny Loveland at Ledge Rock Lures, he finally came out with it. They are selling some of them now, but to answer that question, yes, they are making a new and improved Guido bug now, but it's out of Cassville, Missouri, and it's called Ledge Rock Lures.
I just bought some Ledge Rock trailers from Dunn Sporting Goods a couple days ago. Yep, I sure did.
We sat around, and every one of those molds is hand carved by Danny Loveland. And if you really look at one of those crawdads, that's a lot of detail. I mean, he's got hundreds of hours in each mold, sitting there with the Dremel tool carving that thing out. And it really makes you appreciate when you string one on a jig. It does me, because I've been in on it, and I've been in on making them, and it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I bet. Andy Leonard says, bad day on the water is better than a good day at work. And, that's the old cliche. You hear that 1,000 times. Dave says he's only got about a couple dozen Guido bugs left. So you need to look at Ledge Rock Lures. Is that what he said?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Check them out. I know they got some at Dunn's. I know you got a Dunn's over there somewhere around you, Dave.
And if he gets down here around Lake the Ozarks and he needs a couple 100 pounds of them, I mean, we've got like 3 storage units that are stacked to the ceiling. full of old original ones. And we encourage people to just stop by and pick some of them up so we don't have to tote them back and forth.
There you go. There you go. Mike Marfell said they did cancel the Anglers in Action team at Lake of the Ozarks this coming weekend. He's hoping they do the same for the Toyota, so it's not his first derby in 2021. You'll still catch them, Mike. You'll still catch them. You fishing that? Are you going to fish the Toyota Series? Or are you going to be out on the road?
Well, the first one is kind of tricky. If we end up having the one on Lake of the Ozarks, I think it is all lined out to where if I was to make the top 10, I would miss a day of practice at Smith Lake. But if I make it to the top 10, I'm not going to skip that day. I mean, I'm definitely going to go fishing, but it will be kind of a tight schedule there. But I'm kind of hoping that they reschedule it, just because the fishing's not going to be great anyways. But
yeah,
if they have it, I'm going to be there.
Be a good grinder tournament though. Just get a few bites and you
might be on the water.
Yeah. Stephanie says, how much do your instincts play how much do your instincts play a part when you fish?
Yeah, I mean for me, that's like 90% of it is just following your gut instinct. When you see something, and I really think that a lot of the young guys don't trust their instincts enough, but when I see something that looks good, I don't care if it's, something that I'm not even thinking about doing or something that I haven't caught one off of, I'm going to stop and try it. If it goes through my mind that there might be a bass standing there, I'm going to stop and throw at it. So, your instincts are everything.
Yeah. Alex wants to know if you ever fish up the Glaze. He said he catches a lot of fish there, but they're usually skinny.
Yeah. I mean, I've been as far as you can go up through there in a boat. One of those things that I didn't grow up fishing up in the Glaze. I mean, I grew up down here in a little town called Stover, and basically I can be fishing in the Gravois in about 10 minutes, or I can be putting in Little Buffalo in about 10 minutes. So I fished the Gravois a ton. When I got to where I could drive in school, pretty well I was dragging my boat to school every day and putting in either in the Gravois or way up the river up there in the Buffaloes, just because it was convenient. But I have fished way up the Glaze, and I do have to agree with you. Once you get way on up there, it all depends on the time of year, but the fish are kind of poor looking. But that happens way up every creek arm. I mean, it's the same way up in the Gravois. It's the same way, way up in Big Buffalo and all those big creeks. The fish will get kind of poor looking at times. But it seems like the further you get towards the main lake, the fatter the fish get. And I know everybody kind of thinks that those main lake fish are always bigger, but there's some truth to it. So.
Yeah, they just got more. There's more food down there in the main lake than the further you get up in those creeks. It just gets tougher to find your groceries.
Less opportunities up there.
That's right.
Yeah, Jay said the Glaze stinks. Go the other way.
I can't disagree. I mean, I don't like it most of the time.
Tom has a question. He says, Lawson, how much does the Zoom critter crawl vary from the original Guido bug?
Well, we're not going to get into that argument, but they all started in the same place. And I know where they came from. I throw a critter crawl just because it's convenient to walk into Walmart and buy them every now and then. But I know where they all came from, so I still throw the old Guido bug most of the time.
Well, that's because you got 3 storage units full of them.
Exactly. Yeah. There's virtually no difference between the baby Guido bug and a little critter crawl. So.
Right. Jay Beffa says he looked up the ledge rock lures. There's a D claw and a D chunk. I think what I bought was the D chunk. It had really big pinchers on it, and it's just a little small piece of plastic, to hang off the back of your jig, or you could slide it up. So
And see, that's something that we've never really got into. We've got more and more away from throwing a chunk, and I don't know why, because we might be some of the only people left on the planet that still throw pork. You know, we throw pork a lot, but basically everything else, we're stringing it up on there. I mean, if it's like a little crawdad or something, we're going to string it up on there. We're not going to string it through the nose. But every now and then, it's just kind of like the mop jig phase. I mean, I truly believe that sometimes you get more bites on pork. And I don't like throwing it because you're going to lose about half the fish that bite you. But sometimes you just get more bites on it.
Man, and you can't get it off either. Once that dries up, you got to get some side snips and cut that stuff off.
Yeah.
The original pork.
It's not a great way to go, but it will get you more bites once in a while.
Yeah. I think they're going to start making that again. I've heard
I bought some of the new stuff.
You got some of it?
Yeah, I bought a couple of the jars of the number 11.
Does it look just like the old stuff?
It does. Sometimes with pork, you've got to really work with it to make it look right. I mean, you've got to every now and then take a pair of scissors and a little X-Acto knife and scrape around on it. And we've had to re-dye it, you know, after you kind of tenderize it with a hammer. But, you know, yeah, I ain't kidding you. Every now and then you got to take like a meat mallet to it and just beat it out.
Yeah. That old pork is tough stuff, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, hey guys out there in YouTube land, if you got any more questions for Lawson, get them on here. We'll be wrapping this up here before too long. So this is your last opportunity. And if you haven't hit the like, please hit the like. It's a great way to support our channels. And
I'm just going to throw this out there. Alex said that way up the Glaze Arm is Stump City, and it's never crowded. It's great for flipping.
You just got to make it up there.
Yeah, just got to make it up there. So he sounds like he's got a great honey hole up there. Probably ought to go visit that.
There are a few little stretches up through there that I really like. I've got a place up there that if I can make it up there in, you know, late September, I can wheel around to balsa square lip and a lot of times catch a big stringer. But, you know, if I can catch them out of there, I'm going to, because I feel like it's a little more reliable.
Yeah. I made a run up there one time and about lost my boat. I went falling by a stump that was sticking up out of the water about 3 feet from my boat. It scared the crap out of me. Yeah. I shut it down right then and there and then started looking around and I started seeing a bunch of stumps. I'm like, oh, wait a minute.
I haven't been past there's the military, what do they call that? There's a military base boat ramp down there. Yeah, Fort Leonard Wood, and then you go on past that, and there's a kind of a little campground area there. It's right before you take a really hard bend to the left, and there's a couple coves down there, and then it kind of turns into a flat area back there. That's as far back as I've been. I don't even.
Well, you can go about another 7-8 miles in a jet boat.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
If you take your glass boat up through there, you're not going to want to go a lot further on plane. I mean, I've kind of, you know, I try not to be dangerous, but if I'm out there by myself, I will run up through them places. But, you know, if I really have to think about it, I'm probably going to stop and idle. You know, if I'm like, man, I really don't want to scratch nothing or tear a lower unit off. And there's a lot of crap everywhere that you can tear your stuff up on.
We're looking at it right now on Google Earth, and it gets pretty tight.
Yeah, I'm gonna share this over real quick. I want to ask you a question about this because where I'm looking at here, I think is where I was running through before I hit the stumps. Hang on just a second here. Let me think of what I got to do here. Well, I forgot what I was.
Come on, Mr. IT guy.
I'm thinking here. Hang on.
Got a right click.
I forgot what I was doing.
Hellabass says he's still got some jars of pork. I don't have any more. I mean, I had some for a long time, but they're gone now. It's a winter deal though. I used to always fish them in the winter.
That's what I was looking for.
Oh, here we go.
I couldn't see it.
That's where a lot of people go wrong with pork. One of the best times to throw it's in the middle of the summer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh
well,
yeah.
You just got to keep it wet, I guess.
So this right here is what I was looking
Back
at.
out a little bit so he can see kind of where. Well, he's probably
Well,
camped right there.
Oh, wait
I
a
would
minute. Let me get
imagine.
on the right screen here. So
There we go. Yeah, this is where I was talking about. I fished down. There's a campground right there,
Right here?
and
Yeah.
then we went about right here. There's kind of a bluff, shallow bluff right there. And we
Right.
fished this pocket, and that's as far as we went. So you went on up in there.
Yeah, I was actually way up in here.
Yeah. You
Now-
don't want to be running through none of that.
Well, and
Maybe
that's
it
what I
looks
was
pretty
asking
tight.
because I'm guessing this was, I mean, everything looks pretty green,
Yeah.
but it's maybe not as green as I think. Maybe this is early spring before the water come up.
Well, yeah, I mean that's definitely when the water's low. But
Okay,
still,
so does this normally have water on it right here?
oh yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought because I think this is where I come through, and right through here somewhere is where I seen that stump sticking up.
Oh yeah.
Right there.
It could be
Yeah,
that.
there's a stump right there by your hand on your
Yeah.
deal. But yeah, I mean there's crap out in there everywhere. But you can still go quite a ways, if you're in a jet boat. But
Oh, yeah.
you don't want to run that in a bass boat.
No, heck no. That looks
I mean,
real.
I'll idle through all that stuff, but yeah, I wouldn't run that.
Gotcha.
Huh.
Yeah, you can catch them way on up through there.
Well, we got this up. You want to go ahead and point out your number one spots for us? And
I can. I mean, I don't have a lot of secrets. You don't have many secrets on Lake the Ozarks anymore.
no, especially with all the side imaging and down imaging and 360 and live scope and
Some of the only secrets we've got are way up the river that are so shallow you're not going to find it on all that crap. So, yeah, we do have some secretive stuff up the river, but for the most part, if it's on the low end, you're not fishing it by yourself. So
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, they had
you might get one season out of it if you put it out yourself, but more than likely somebody's going to find it within a season. I mean, all of our good jerkbait stuff, it's found. I mean, people find it. A lot of them drag it off. One of them deals.
I got a question for you. How many docks are there on Lake of the Ozarks?
I want to say, boy, you've got me stumped now. I wanted to say 35,000, but I really think it's more like 55,000.
Mm-hmm. I didn't expect to have an exact answer. I just want to see you. I just want to see you move your hat up and down a couple of times.
I think it's like 55,000. I really do.
Yeah, it's got to be.
I had a meeting with Bass and Bob earlier today, and he told me something about the number of boat docks and the amount of people. And I wanted to say 55,000, but I could be totally wrong too.
Yeah, that sounds like there's at least that many.
Yeah, there's a lot. I can tell you that. I'm never going to run out of boat docks to fish. I mean, I can pretty well sling my jig underneath a new one every time I'm out there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all righty.
That's why our lake is so good.
Yeah, it is. You got so many places for those fish to hide. And, a lot of guys won't take the time to go all around the backs of those docks too. I haven't fished Lake of the Ozarks a whole bunch, but I know, especially, in the springtime, that's the deal. Taking your time to go around and flipping the water.
I feel bad because of my, my boater in the back, my non-boater in the back, but some of the places I get my boat into and, they've got nowhere to go. They got walls on both sides of them. All they can do is drag it behind the boat. But
that's a question I got for you before we go. I'll be fishing the Toyota Series as a co-angler. Right. What are your recommendations when your boater is flipping up tight to, skipping and pitching those docks and stuff? If you were in the back of the boat, what would you be targeting?
I was never a good co-angler. I'd done it for, 3 or 4 years and I couldn't stand it, but I did have some success with it. And I think a lot of that is, everybody talks about, pay attention and watch where he's cast every hole he misses. Well, that is some of it a little bit, I guess. But I think one of the things that helped me, you know, I kind of avoided what he was doing. And, say he was skipping a jig underneath them boat docks and, somebody was following me around. I know exactly what I'd be doing. I'd be throwing at something different. I mean, if I thought that there was a fish standing around out there loose around them boat docks, I would either be throwing a little tiny finesse jig at it or a little shaky head or something like that. And I know that's kind of a cliche for a co-angler and a shaky head, but there's a reason that is a thing. I mean, that works. I mean, coming up for this one in the spring, there is no way for a pro to front end you going into this Toyota series that's supposed to be here in a couple weeks. You are just as likely to catch a 20-pound stringer as he is. And no other reason than I've been in the boat so many times, with Dirk and my dad, and I'll be up there running that trolling motor, throwing my jerk bait or my jig, and they're sitting back there in their seat, just sitting there putzing around with a jerk bait and or a jig. They'll fleece you out of the back of the boat, and I've seen it happen so many times. It's a different situation in like the fall, but in the spring, like the Ozarks, you can't really get front ended. If that boater knows anything about what he's doing, going into this, because they're not going to be, for the most part, you're not going to be fishing back behind them docks and stuff. I mean, if they're doing it right, they're going to be sitting out there, off the fronts of them docks or just going down them bare banks, and you can't really go wrong. I mean, whether you're throwing a little jig around or throwing a jerk bait, I mean, if I was to give one piece of advice, it would probably be to try and slow down, slower than he's going, because the situation that's happening right now with all this ice and water dropping and all that, they're just not active, and they're not going to be active. I mean, I would maybe, milk my little jig around a little more, if he's probably not going to be throwing a jig. I mean, most of them are going to be A-rigging and jerk baiting and, throwing stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, the tournament will probably be won on a jerk bait, hands down. But if I was a co-angler, it would be hard for me to pick up something besides a little tiny finesse jig. I mean, because I know what that can do when this is happening.
Yeah. And there's brush everywhere too. I mean,
yeah, and there's fish standing in it. I don't care what time of the year it is. If there's a good pile of brush, there's a fish standing in it. I mean, and if nothing else, that live scope has shown me, it's that there are fish standing everywhere. And you are just as likely to catch one slinging right out in the middle of a little pocket as you are slinging at the bank. I mean, they're literally everywhere. I mean, there are 4 to 6 pounders in every creek. I mean, because I have, intentionally just gone looking with that thing, and I've got good enough with it now. I can tell you about how big one is, and there's big bass everywhere. I mean, it's not like you got to go and get on this one little specific deal to get a bite. I mean, your odds are just as good as the pro of catching a big one, in the spring. It's a different situation on Lake the Ozarks. I mean, the springtime, it doesn't hurt whether you're on the front or the back. I can tell you that. I mean, I've been fleeced too many times out of the back of the boat, seen it happen.
Yeah, especially when it's a slow bite. I fish a lot of local tournaments out of the front of the boat, and my team partner Jerry, there's days when he just kicks my butt, and it's almost always when there's a slow bite, when it's letting it sit, just letting it soak and moving it real slow. Because I'm,
you're in between sandwich breaks.
Yeah, in between sandwich breaks. Jerry eats a lot of sandwiches, but on the front of the boat, it's harder to fish slow. because you're seeing that next target, that next spot, you know, and even though you're trying to fish low, the guy on the back, he can just throw out and
Right.
he can open the bell as you're going down. He can keep it sitting for a lot longer.
Well, and I know that is why, you know, I get fleeced so often jerkbait fishing out of the back of the boat, is because, you know, Dirk will just be sitting back there, and he is probably the best stick bait fisherman I've ever been in the boat with. I mean, he learned from, you know, one of the best guys on the lake, Bruce Geyer, and he has no bones about telling you where his knowledge came from, that it's from that old man. And that guy just catches them. He doesn't bass fish that much anymore, but when he did, he dominated. If it was a jerkbait type deal, Bruce Geyer was going to win the tournament. I mean, that's just how it worked. And he was very, very slow, you know, stayed off of his trolling motor all the time, you know, threw that bait out there and just didn't do much with it. And that is one thing with the jerk bait. And it's hard for a guy standing up there on that trolling motor to do. I mean, you can't hardly stay focused enough to not be moving that bait some. And I mean, I love throwing a jerk bait. Don't get me wrong. I love anything that'll catch me a bass, but it's hard to work it slow enough, you know, especially with a situation like's going on with this cold weather and stuff like that. The slower you can go, the better off you are.
Well, and you're dealing with boat control too on the front of the boat. You know, the guy in the back of the boat, he's just back there fishing. You know,
not worried about a thing but his bait.
That's right.
And that's the perfect situation, really.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd rather be in the back of the boat on a windy day, unless it's just fishing shallow, throwing a spinner bait or a square bill or something, burning up the bank on a windy day. But if it's a cold, windy day and you got to fish a jerk bait or something, I almost would like to be in the back of the boat. You got a lot better control of your bait and stuff.
Yeah, and I never get that opportunity. You know, when we're fishing team tournaments and stuff, Dirk, it never fails. He's gonna make me run the trolling motor, and you know, I'd have to tell him every now and then, you know, one of us will catch one. We'll get out in the cold. I'll be like, hey, get up there on the trolling motor. He'll be like, it's all right. You know, we're good. You just spot lock it. You know, we'll stay right here. So, yeah, I am always on the trolling motor. But,
that's called getting dirked right there.
Yeah, exactly. That is good. I've never heard that. That's good. I'll have to tell him that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's you want to wrap this up, man? Yeah. It's coming up on 2 hours, man. It was really a pleasure hanging out with you, man. It was good to meet you and stuff. I wish you the best of luck out there on the tour this year, or the pro circuit. It's not the tour anymore, but
keep us in mind once you get done with this season, get you back on, kind of go wrap up everything over the season.
Maybe late summer, late fall, or early fall, we'll get you back on here and we can do a recap. So, all right, man.
That's one good thing about a bass fisherman. Our schedules are pretty flexible normally. So anytime we can be on, help, we can do whatever.
Heck yeah, it's fun. I enjoy, you know, that's one of the things that's been really nice about doing these live streams is we've had different guests, and it's nice to, it's just nice to meet somebody you don't know that's a fishing bass head just like you are. And then it's also nice to share
knowledge back and forth.
Share knowledge back and forth. I mean, we learn stuff. Everybody on here learns stuff. It's just a good thing to share information. So it's a really good time. So anyway, man, good luck with that new kid too, a new baby.
Thank you.
Get some sleep.
Yeah, that doesn't come very often.
I know, dude. I got twins. I got 12-year-olds. I mean, they're older now, but man, I don't even remember the first 3 years. I really don't. It's like a blur, man.
Just a blur.
Yep, it's a blur. So, all right, man. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. See you, bud. All right, man. That was fun. Good stuff. He got me fired up to go fishing.
Dude,
I am fired.
I'll tell you a little story after we get off here with a little phone call I was on.
Yeah.
So I may be doing a little this weekend.
Good for you. Yeah, I'm planning. Are you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're going to
Georgia.
Okay. Heck yeah, man. I was thinking about that, and you need to take advantage of that for sure.
Well, they don't exactly allow fishing poles on airplanes too easily. So
Well, you got your cover down there. You just got to go down there.
I'm gonna take some reels down and we're gonna work something out. So
yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, I'm planning on going Thursday with Ron. Hopefully, you guys are Southern Illinois folks on here. I got an update on the way up here about the ice on Lake of Egypt. It's still iced over, but it's starting to open up slightly. And as far as the other lakes in the area, like Cedar and stuff, I have no idea. I haven't been over there, but I'm thinking
I heard Cedar was still ice.
I bet it is.
I talked to Dave Pedigo today, and he said it was.
Okay, but we got what 50-degree days the next couple of days.
Tomorrow's supposed to be on 60,
and then we got a couple of nights where it's not supposed to get below freezing,
right? And
then we got some wind and maybe some rain, so
it should break it up pretty good.
Yeah, I hope within the next week we'll be able to get back out on a lot of these lakes. I hope. I don't know, but
I can't wait just to hook up to my boat and take it to the water.
yeah, no kidding, man.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I see some new names on here, man. Appreciate you guys coming on here and checking out the live stream. We do this every night or every Monday at 7:30 Central.
Yep.
I see Tom on there. That's a new name. Yep. And Curtis. Yeah, Lawson was great, man. I really enjoyed hanging out with him. A lot of heritage with the Hibdon family. So it was cool to talk to him. Yeah.
For sure.
So I guess that's it.
I guess eventually we need to get Ron back on here sometime too.
We were talking about having Ron and what's the biologist's name?
Mike or not Mike?
Sean
Hurst.
Yes.
Yeah, Sean Hurst was. I'm gonna put him probably in my top 3 guests
as far as interesting biology knowledge type stuff.
Just with the knowledge that guy had and how much interest we pulled in over that, because there were so many questions. You remember that? I mean, there were so many questions that come in that night that we couldn't even.
It's very interactive. We had a very interactive.
Yeah, I mean, and the guy was on top of his game.
So Sean Hurst is the he's the fisheries biologist for the Illinois Department of Natural Resources in Jackson County, and there's another lake, Wren
Lake.
Okay.
Yep.
So we had him on. It's been probably 4 months ago. So if you want to listen to that, it's a real good listen. You can go back into the archives and our live stream. I got a live stream playlist, and Greg's got it on his channel.
Yeah.
But me and Ron were talking the other night about the shad kill and the ice, and we haven't had this much ice.
That would be a great topic.
Yeah, I'd love to get his take on
I tell you what, we can do both of them. So
that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Have Ron and Sean there.
Yep, definitely.
David Rhymes.
And then eventually, I'm thinking one of these nights we need to have a kind of an open deal. Maybe get a couple of our viewers on.
Have guests come in.
Just give them a couple minutes each. Come on, maybe introduce themselves. If they want to. So because we see you guys commenting all the time, but we don't know. What anybody looks like or nothing like that. So if you guys be interested in that, maybe throw that out there. We'll kind of look into that. It's pretty easy to do. So
Shadow Basson, what's up, man? Shadow Basson's he's everywhere. It's good to see him on there. Next week, next Monday, you're going to be out of town.
Yeah.
And I may do I might get the StreamYard at my house, possibly, just for times like this when we can't be around.
Actually, that would not be a bad idea, because I could possibly do it with you if I had to.
Well, I was thinking,
I'll give you all my login,
so
you can have it down there.
Okay. Either way, I'll just be doing one by myself, because Greg's going to be out of town, or we'll try to figure out a way that I can do the StreamYard or something from my house. Just for the rare occasion that we aren't able to do that. And if that happens, I talked to Brendan McCord. If you don't know Brendan McCord, he won the All-American just a couple of years ago, which is, man, that's one of the hardest tournaments. The All-American is you qualify to fish the All-American through the BFL. And it's just as tough to win as any tournament out there, in my opinion. So that was quite an impressive feat. And he actually finished 5th in the Toyota Series last weekend down in Guntersville. So he's still hot and heavy. He's doing it right now. He's fishing. I'm not sure if he's just fishing that division or what else he's doing. I just texted him. So I'm curious to find out a little bit more about him. He's a Southern Illinois guy. I'm thinking he lives up there north of Wren Lake. I'm not exactly sure what town he's from. But anyway, I reached out to him, and he's definitely up for doing it. So if we don't get him on next week, it'll probably be the following week. And if you guys got some people that aren't here right now, if you've got some guests that you'd be interested in seeing on the live stream, please leave them and let us know. I know Ken Smith was one of the guests that some people,
After Trevor McKinney,
some people had said, hey, you should get Ken Smith on there. And that was a really good stream. If you haven't checked that one out, that was very, very detailed, lots of good information. So leave some comments and let us know who you would like to see on here. And even if we click off before you get on here, go back afterwards and leave the comments below the video on the playback. And that way, actually, that's the best way to do it, because after we shut this down, we lose all this stuff over here that we're looking at. So if you can go back on the playback and just leave it in the comment section, people that you would want us to see, and we can reach out to them and try to get some of those guests on, because a lot of the guys are real responsive. Some of them will snub you. I mean, I've reached out to Gerald Swindle. I've reached out to Randy Blockett. I've reached out to Rick Clun, which Rick Clun's a hermit. I don't think he even has a phone. He was out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I thought about writing a little letter and putting it on a passenger pigeon and sending it off. But so
we just need to like Matt Airy and Brian Thrift on here.
Yeah. But you never know.
We'll do a back and forth between their channel and our channel.
Yeah. If Hellabass is on here, he knows what I'm talking about. Some of these guys will just they don't respond, and that's cool. That's their way of saying no. But some of them are pretty open. You know, like Lawson. That was great. It was good to meet him, and you know, he's a pro. Great information there. So yeah. So leave some in the comment section. Leave some guests that you would like us to have. Suggestions. Yeah. So, but I guess that's it. It was fun, man. I learned a lot. Lake of the Ozarks. I'm so curious to see if they're going to have the Toyota Series next weekend. I mean, I think it's going to happen. Let's see, today's what, Monday? Mm-hmm. Got a whole nother week is next Monday, and then that's not until Thursday. It could very well happen. Yeah. They got a lot of money invested in that. I don't know if they're going to cancel it if they think they can have it. But I'd say that low water they're going to have to do. It's going to have to be down. The ice is going to have to be gone long enough to where they can do a ramp check. You know, Justin Rackley. Yeah, Clark, leave that on the comments afterwards. Yeah. So I've got a running list. That way I can look and try to reach some of these people.
What's in this so they can start commenting on that? That way we know.
Yeah. So, all right, man, we're going to let you go. Appreciate you guys coming out and hanging with us. And I will see you next Monday, one way or the other, most likely. So,
all right. See you, peoples.